The world keeps telling men to soften, to bend, to erase their edge, yet every man can feel it. Without inner structure, life fractures from the inside out. There comes a moment when distraction no longer hides the truth, when a man sees the gap between who he is and who he was meant to become. Wisdom is not comfort. It is a blade that carves away illusions, and every man who hears this knows strength without wisdom collapses, and a life without discipline drifts toward emptiness. Look around. Comfort has turned many men hollow. Strength is spoken of, but rarely lived. Convenience replaced discipline, noise replaced conviction, and distraction became a quiet form of surrender. Entire generations drift through life without an anchor, without boundaries, without an inner oath to hold them steady. The world calls this freedom, yet it leaves men restless, unfocused, unable to respect themselves. A man can hide from work, from responsibility, from truth, but he cannot hide from the mirror. And one day, the mirror demands an answer. Wisdom begins when a man takes command of himself, not the world, not other people, himself. A man without self-command is led by impulse, appetite, anger, or ego, and none of these build a life that stands. Discipline is not punishment. It is architecture. It is the slow shaping of instinct into principle, desire into direction, reaction into restraint. A man who cannot restrain himself cannot call himself strong. He may lift weight, speak loudly, or project confidence, but inside, he knows when he is ruled by habit instead of oath. To live with wisdom is to establish an inner law. You decide what you will tolerate in your thoughts, your actions, your speech, your habits. You refuse to be dragged by urges that weaken your backbone. You rise early when your body resists. You finish what you start when your emotions fade. You speak truth when silence would protect your comfort. Strength is not dominance, it is order. It is the alignment between what you say you believe and the way you actually live. And a wise man carries that order into how he treats others, especially women. Respect is not submission, and it is not performance. It is evidence of inner structure. A man who respects women does so because he respects himself. He refuses exploitation, manipulation, or bitterness because he will not allow corruption inside his character. Restraint, honor, restraint again, these form the spine of masculinity. When a man lives by oath rather than impulse, he becomes steady. And when he becomes steady, he becomes dangerous in the right way, controlled, principled, unshakable. Honor is the weight a man carries when no one is watching. It is the refusal to betray himself even when no consequence appears immediate. A man of honor does not bend his principles to gain approval, status, or advantage. He does not lie to protect his ego or shift blame to escape responsibility. He stands inside the truth, even when it exposes him, because he understands that the moment he abandons truth, he fractures his own spine. Honor is not pride. It is alignment between conscience and action. Courage is not noise or bravado. It is endurance. It is the willingness to walk through difficulty without victimhood, to face fear without theatrics, to carry burden without complaint. Many men chase intensity but flee endurance. They want excitement, not perseverance. Yet wisdom teaches that strength is measured not in moments of impulse, but in long obedience to what is right, the quiet refusal to quit when comfort calls you back. A wise man builds boundaries around his life. He guards his time, his energy, his mind. He does not allow entertainment, anger, or desire to trespass into his inner command center. He understands that a man without boundaries becomes a man without direction, scattered, reactive, restless. So he fortifies his thoughts, disciplines his routines, and trains his will to hold its line. This is mental fortitude, the strength to remain steady when the world pulls toward distraction. And no man walks this path alone. Brotherhood matters because steel sharpens steel. Men who pursue wisdom together confront each other, challenge each other, and call each other higher. Not through flattery, but through truth, spoken with gravity. Brotherhood is not escape from responsibility, it is reinforcement of it. A man among men of discipline grows stronger, clearer, more anchored. He becomes part of an order larger than himself, and that order strengthens his resolve. If a man feels his backbone stirring, do not delay the turning. Step into the 60-day reclaiming of discipline, clarity, and inner oath. This is a decision, not a feeling. Link pinned in the first comment. A man who lives with wisdom begins to build order not only within himself, but across the landscape of his life. He understands that every action is a seed, every habit a wall, every choice a brick in the structure he will one day inhabit. Disorder may feel free in the moment, but it always collects its debt in the future. So a wise man refuses to live as a wanderer inside his own existence. He establishes direction. He decides who he is becoming and aligns his steps to that decision. Order begins with the unseen regions of life, the thoughts he entertains, the words he allows to leave his mouth, the habits that govern his days. He does not speak carelessly because speech shapes reality. He does not feed addictions of distraction because he knows that every indulgence weakens the line he is sworn to hold. He learns to say no, firmly and without apology, because saying no to corruption is another way of saying yes to his future. Boundaries are not cages, they are fortifications. A man without boundaries leaks strength. He gives time to triviality, attention to noise, energy to conflict that produces nothing. But a man who builds boundaries becomes precise. He chooses what enters his mind, who has access to his presence, which battles deserve his effort. He does not chase validation because his worth is not negotiated with the crowd. His life becomes purposeful, deliberate, and quiet in its confidence. And as order deepens, something greater begins to emerge: legacy. A man of wisdom understands that his life does not end with himself. The way he walks, the way he speaks, the way he carries responsibility will echo beyond his own years. Legacy is not built through noise or reputation. It is built through consistency, restraint, and fidelity to principle. He respects women because he honors the future. He leads not through dominance, but through steadiness. He chooses discipline today so that those who come after him inherit strength rather than chaos. The wise man does not rush to be impressive. He labors to be solid. He prefers a life that withstands time over a moment that attracts attention. And in this quiet, disciplined path, he discovers a deeper kind of strength, the strength of a life aligned, ordered, and unmovable. There comes a point in every man's life when excuses can no longer protect him. Wisdom demands confrontation, not with the world first, but with the self. A man who lives with wisdom stops blaming circumstances, upbringing, injustice, or misfortune for everything he has become. He may acknowledge hardship, but he refuses to hide behind it. He stands before his failures and says, "This is mine to repair." That admission is not humiliation. It is the beginning of strength. The man who avoids responsibility remains a child, no matter his age. The man who embraces it becomes a pillar. Responsibility strips away illusions. It forces a man to see where he has been careless with his time, reckless with his words, undisciplined with his body, or absent in relationships that depended on his steadiness. Wisdom does not comfort him in these discoveries. It confronts him. It does not say, "You tried your best." It says, "You know you could have done more, and now you must." True masculinity is not defensive. It does not search for justification. It stands still, accepts truth, and begins rebuilding from it. Hardship becomes a forge in the life of such a man. He does not romanticize suffering, but he does not run from it either. He understands that the weight he carries today trains his character for tomorrow. When life tightens around him, when finances strain, when relationships test his patience, when loneliness presses in silence, he does not collapse into self-pity. He endures. He remains grounded. He refuses to compromise his principles just to escape discomfort. Wisdom teaches him that integrity preserved in hardship shapes a strength that no comfort can produce. And this path is not loud. It is not theatrical. The world celebrates dramatic displays of emotion, endless public confession, and spectacle dressed as vulnerability. A wise man does not seek applause for his battles. He fights them quietly, with dignity. He faces temptation without broadcasting it, corrects his flaws without demanding recognition, and rebuilds his life brick by brick, unseen. His victory is not performance, it is transformation. To live this way is to choose a different standard. It is to measure life not by pleasure, convenience, or approval, but by whether a man can look at himself without turning away. Responsibility, confrontation, endurance. These shape a man who cannot be easily shaken because his strength is rooted in truth, not appearance. Every man searching for wisdom eventually confronts the question of what the ultimate standard of manhood looks like. Not the loud hero, not the conqueror hungry for admiration, not the figure built on ego or dominance, but the one whose strength remains unbroken, even when stripped of comfort, recognition, and safety. Across cultures and generations, men sense that the highest form of masculinity is defined by discipline, sacrifice, restraint, courage under pressure, unwavering moral clarity, and the willingness to carry burden for the sake of others. This is not theory. It is the backbone every honest man knows he was meant to grow into. The more a man pursues this path, the more he realizes that true strength is quiet, principled, and deeply rooted in purpose. It does not need applause to exist. It does not fracture under rejection. It does not shift simply because the world changes its values. This strength endures betrayal without bitterness, hardship without collapse, temptation without surrender. It refuses corruption even when corruption would make life easier. It gives rather than consumes. It leads through service, not control. It stands, even when standing costs something. And history has given humanity a living picture of that standard. A figure who embodied discipline, courage, self-command, compassion without weakness, authority without arrogance, endurance without hatred. A life marked by silence where pride would have spoken, by restraint where rage would have erupted, by resolve where fear would have fled. Many men pursue wisdom long before they recognize his name. Yet the path keeps bending toward the same model, the same backbone, the same unbreakable pattern of strength and honor. He is not presented as sentiment or religion, but as the prototype of ordered masculinity, the pattern of a life aligned with truth, anchored in purpose, firm in sacrifice, immovable in character. The closer a man comes to wisdom, the more he discovers that the strength he seeks has always pointed toward this standard. And when a man begins to shape his life according to that pattern, in silence, in discipline, in daily oath and steady courage, he does not become softer or smaller. He becomes whole, integrated, and formidable in the ways that matter most. Wisdom is not an idea a man thinks about, it is a life he practices. So the path must become concrete. Begin with your inner oath. Choose the principles you will not violate, even when convenience tempts you. Write them, confront them daily, and measure your actions against them without excuses. Establish discipline in the body first. Wake when you said you would. Train when you do not feel like it. Control appetite instead of being controlled by it. The body becomes the first proving ground of the will. Guard the mind with the same seriousness. Limit noise, refuse useless distraction, and cultivate silence long enough to hear your conscience speak. Choose your words with precision. Do not speak what weakens your character or dishonors others. Repair what you have neglected: relationships, responsibilities, unfinished duties. Seek brotherhood, not entertainment. Men who challenge you toward truth rather than comfort. Treat women with dignity and consistency, not performance, because respect is a reflection of the order inside you. Live each day as a craftsman of your character, slow, deliberate, honest, and faithful to the man you are becoming. At some point, every man must decide whether he will drift or stand. The world offers distraction, comfort, noise, and endless escape, but none of it builds a spine. Wisdom calls a man to something heavier, something quieter, something stronger. It calls him to live with discipline instead of impulse, with honor instead of convenience, with courage instead of retreat. A man who walks this path does not become perfect. He becomes deliberate. He does not chase admiration. He becomes worthy of respect. This is the art of living with wisdom: to command yourself, to guard your mind, to carry responsibility without complaint, to respect others without surrendering your strength, to endure adversity without breaking your integrity. And as a man follows this path with steadiness, sacrifice, and inner oath, he discovers that the strength he searched for was never far away. It was waiting inside the man he was always meant to become. Stand, decide, live with wisdom.